Hey there, everybody. I am live. My name is Huang with Hand Therapy Secrets, and results have been in for at least 2 weeks on the hand exam, right? So, if anyone has taken the hand exam, your results are in, and people are actually getting the results now. So, I wanted to come on live today and just talk about some of the things that I've noticed. So let's see, I should be on live on Instagram, and anyone is wanting to join me live here, come join me, come ask me some questions. Like, I'm totally open to answering questions as it relates to helping OTs and PTs develop their careers and become certified hand therapists. If you're watching me on Facebook or on YouTube, you can type in your questions, post a comment below, and I'm happy to answer them. And of course, you guys know you can always reach out to me via DM on all social media channels, and you can also send me send me an email. Send me an email. All right, I spend lots and lots of time writing emails, which is awesome. I love hearing people's stories. I love hearing about their career path. I love hearing about their successes, and I love hearing about some of the struggles that they are going through. And I think that that really helps. Not just to have you talk to someone who's completely out, like not necessarily immediately in your space. Is sometimes that talking to a stranger sometimes is very helpful versus talking to someone you know, right? There's a lot of like no judgment type of thing where since you don't know them so well, it's kind of easier to give unfiltered advice in a way. So if you're joining me live, thank you so much for watching. My name is Huang, and I help occupational therapists and physical therapists become certified hand therapists. And really, so much more than just passing the CHT, but it's really about career development. If I really think about it, it's personal development, career development, and we are people in our careers, so we can't really separate it. So believe it or not, it goes hand in hand. So results have been out for a couple weeks now, and I wanted to show you and share with you some of the things I've noticed, right? Some of the things I've noticed in terms of how our students have passed on the first try. Because I figure if I can share with you some of the things I've noticed and some of the things that we're looking at from behind the scenes, it can help you as somebody who's just watching this, whether you're watching it right now or you're watching it at a later time, kind of get some insight on what you essentially can do to be encouraged, one, to study for the exam, and then two, to be able to pass it on the first try, right? So I noticed a couple of things as I've been working with students this like now 3 years, just formally under Hand Therapy Secrets, but I've been doing this for quite some time through my clinic. I've had my clinic for almost 10 years, and every therapist that I've hired has essentially become a CHT at some point or another. And and so that's really a great metric that I'm really proud of. And I hope that, you know, when I opened my clinic, I really, one of my biggest goals was to be able to provide um, opportunities for OTs to specialize and become hand therapists. I mean, the way I saw it was I went through that experience coming out of school. They teach you how to be generalists, right? And a lot of times people are like, oh, but I really love hand therapy. I wish that they had spent more time showing me X, Y, and Z. But if you really think about it, a lot of the people who teach at university, a majority of them barely practice. So how are they going to teach you what they don't even freaking do, right? I'm not talking shit about the professors. There's probably some great professors. I'm sure there are great professors. And even though mine was great when I was in school, she also had no real life experience. She was great teaching me the thing that she knew, but it wasn't necessarily the thing that I needed to know to work. right? They're two separate, different things. And they try to bridge it, but it's two different paths to specialty. Like if you want to go into academia, like you're into academia, research, stats, reading shit, and it really sometimes does not correspond with treatment, like what people actually do in the real world. And so my hand specialist at my university, she didn't have any clinical experience. I mean, how was I ever going to learn anything from her? I learned valuable information from her. I didn't learn how to be a certified hand therapist. I did not learn how to become an occupational therapist. You get to school so that you can get your degree, so that you can sit for the exam, so you can pass and you can be licensed to practice. That's all the university does. Then everything after that is left to you to figure out. This is called adulting. It's left for you to figure out, because not everyone who's in school wants to be a certified hand therapist, right? I mean, I'd be pissed off if they made me do more peds, and I'm not a peds person. So school allows you to be a generalist. In the real world, you can pick and choose how to be a specialist. And if you're watching here and you want, and it's been in the back of your brain to be a certified hand therapist, or to go into hand therapy at least and work in that field, then kudos to you. Come join us. It's so much fun. So when I first opened my clinic here at Hands-On Therapy Services, I really wanted to provide opportunities that I didn't necessarily have first coming out, no experience, wanting to do hands, knew I wanted to do hands, but knew it was a very cliquey crowd, that if you weren't a certified hand therapist, you weren't considered in. And I don't necessarily think it was all on them. I'm sure it had a lot to do with me and how I felt in terms of not being worthy, not being good enough, because I didn't have the experience. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about half the time, with all those letters they throw out. I mean, I still, like, my brain works slowly with acronyms. So I still have to sit there and think about, like, FDP profundus, right? So but my brain works in different ways that are special to me. It's just not necessarily, special to anyone else. But when I started my business, that's what I wanted. I wanted opportunities to provide. And then once I got into the business of hiring, I was like, holy crap, my money is going to go really fast. And it takes a lot of time to train somebody. And really, I needed people to have a certain buy-in. Like, they have to want that. I would have people tell me they want to do something, but if they didn't show me or they didn't do the thing, it's hard. I can't drag people along. That's where I always talk about, like, I can't drag people with me. They have to want the thing, and because it takes such effort. Just like the hand exam program, you want to pass, and you want to pass the first time. Buying into a program like mine gets you the videos, gets you the coaching, gets you the live calls. But dude, you still have to study. You still have to put the time into study. I cannot help people just by, here you go, this magic pill, There's still a lot of effort and still a lot of work that needs to be done in order to pass. So that's why I want to talk to you guys today. If you're watching, if you're listening, if you're watching this on replay, you can feel free to leave me comments, feel free to send me messages. But that's what I've been collecting, slowly but surely collecting data on what we do on the back end of things, and then the results that we're looking for on the front end of things. And when people pass, it's great, right? There's a lot of celebration. There's a lot of, this is how I did it. And they want to share those things, and it's wonderful. And I would encourage you, if you're studying, you want to take things like that with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that that's not good. It is good, because what you're seeing is evidence that it's possible, evidence that someone else did it. So if they did it, you can do it, right? But the grain of salt comes from the fact that you have to know you. You have to know how you study. You have to know what's going on in your life, and the barriers that you face that they don't have, that they're not necessarily sharing, right? And I'll tell you, majority of the time, people share when they pass the first time. But here, what I can provide you is a little perspective is I'm comparing it from the people who pass for the first time and the people who fail and the people who keep failing, right? So take it what you will. I just hope that it helps you if you are ready to sit for the exam. November, you've got to get this on the ball rolling because we are already halfway done with June. And pretty much when we're done like halfway with June, I'm like, we in July. Like my life is already in July. And so if you're studying for the November exam, let's be realistic with that. And if you are preparing for the May of 2023, then we need to prepare for that as well. Right? So here's 3 things I've noticed. I'm just going to tell you them real quick and then I'll go into detail about them. So the 3 things I've really noticed for the people who passed the first time around is 1, that they studied. 2 is that they're able to connect the dots. And by what I mean with connecting the dots is applying what they know and making firm decisions. And number 3 is releasing the pressure valve. So I'm going to go into detail about that. So people who have taken the exam as compared to people who, have failed is really the studying. Well, let's face it, you've got to study. And studying is not the same for everybody. It is not the same for everybody. So please do not compare yourself to your friend who passed the first time and you didn't. Or someone who like, oh my God, they failed so many times and now you're taking it for the first time and you're really scared. Do not take other people's stories on as your own. Right? You still have to put the work in to study, but it's not the same for every single person. When you study, you need to make sure that you go at a certain pace to cover between 80 to 90% of all the topics. Hand injuries, wrist injuries, tendon injuries, burns and wounds. And burns and wounds kind of come with some complications, right? Then you've got elbow injuries, shoulder injuries, and then nerve types of injuries. And then all of that combined together, along with so many other little topics that can sit in between those major topics and really have an understanding of all those like little nuances. And when I talk about studying, I don't talk about just sitting there and memorizing things. I talk in terms of understanding concepts, because the whole point of becoming a certified hand therapist is really about becoming an expert. There was something that I heard earlier this week and I wanted to bring it up, and it was and I'm going to let you guys think about this for a second, which is, what's the difference between information and advice, right? Really think about that. What's the difference between information and advice, right? So when you're studying, it is not just about the information and it's not just about memorizing every little thing, but it's really about finding tune that information. What advice would you give somebody if they were your good friend, if they were a family member? Let me move this thing out of the way. Never fails that I get phone calls when I'm on live, but what do you just give them information, or are you giving them advice, right? And when you become a certified hand therapist, people are coming to you as an expert so that you can tell them what to do, so that you can give them direction in terms of what to do, right? So keep that in mind when you're studying, that it's not just about memorization. And you have to know by now, we're post school, right? We're not in high school. We studied one way when we're in high school. We studied another way when we're in college. And we got to study most likely somehow a different way now that we are not in college. You got a full-time job. You got other shit to do. There's a lot of information, right? So how you might have studied, and then now there's people, you guys are like how many years out of school? A minimum of 3 years out of school, right? Majority of the time people are coming to me, they want to take the exam and they want to pass the first time. They are a minimum like between 5 and 10 years out of school, right? 5 to 10 years out of school. That's a lot of years out of school. So how you're studying now is a little bit different than how you studied before. But you have to be honest with yourself and say that you studied. When I took the exam, I said I studied, but let's be honest, I wasn't really studying that much, right? And I was just logging time. Who's out here logging time, saying that you're studying, but you're not really studying? Let's be honest, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're lying to yourself, like if you're lying, you're just lying to yourself. So I, used to say like, oh, I was studying, but I wasn't really studying. Like some days I need to work and I'm not really working. I'm getting interrupted, and so my mind's all over the place. I'm not focused. I'm getting interrupted. I don't want my staff to see this and be like, I'm sorry I interrupted, but that's not the point, right? The point is sometimes you're not getting the thing that you need done because there's a lot of things coming, a lot of distractions and stuff like that. You really do need to hone in on your study time, chunking that time out, and being very very intentional, very intentional about the time that you study. So my husband, like every time I have a mishap on a word I'm saying, he always likes to make fun of me. So I always hear him kind of making fun of me when I mess up on a word. But yeah, so you really have to think about like, are you really studying or are you effing around? Be honest with you, because some days, let's be honest, you're effing around, but you clocking it like you're studying, right? So the people who are passing are covering majority of those topics, and they're actually putting in intentional focused time to study. And then outside of the time, really it's how you're studying, because not everyone studies the same. Some people are readers, right? Some people are readers and they need to read everything and they need to connect the dots and understand. I mean, that's kind of me. And I have to read because, and it's not that I'm necessarily reading, it's like I have to look and recognize words. Something about the way my brain works, I just have to like recognize certain words. And as long as I understand the concepts, when I see that type of word in that pattern, I can remember what it's supposed to mean or what it's supposed to do. So I have a tendency to need to read. If you have the need to read, I got you because I understand. Now, some people come into my program because they want to read, but it's difficult and they're, they struggle with that and it slows them down. So who's my program built for? Like both of those, right? Because if you learn in different ways, the audio part is really key, right? The structure is really key so that it gets you getting through the topics. So I also am somebody who I have to draw on myself. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn from feel. I have to touch things. I have to feel it, and it commits to my memory. And it's so funny because like my patients I've seen from years ago, if they come back to me, when they come back to me, I'll actually remember them. I won't remember their names, but I'll remember their face and I'll remember their problems. I'll remember their treatments or whatever. And it's just because I'm kind of that kinesthetic learner where if I touch and feel, I can understand and commit that to like an understanding and a memory. I'm also, I just learned everything. I'm an auditory learner. So I've never been somebody who can memorize a lot of stuff. Like if you're on different channels and you'll see, oh, like I'm quizzing you. I am not a good quizzer. I mean, like it's not an ego thing to me. Like, oh, I know that answer right off the tip of my tongue. I never know the answer right off the tip of my tongue. But I kind of understand how to break something down and know what to do. So if I can see it, I can recognize it, and I'll know. But I've never been somebody who, if you quiz me, I'm not the one. I'll lose. I'll lose. Um, so it's having that understanding of how you study that's going to be really key. So the program allows you to kind of touch upon all those spaces. So really think about how you study and be honest, right? The hand exam prep program currently is open for enrollment. So just go to the link on the website. I'll include it somewhere here so you can apply for the program, see if you're on the right track and if you're right for the program right now, right? Number one thing, pass. To study, to pass, right? Number two is connecting the dots. And connecting the dots is really about applying what you know and making firm decisions, right? Listen to the words coming out of my mouth. Firm decisions in lieu of self-doubt. When you're taking an exam like that, of course there's self-doubt. Of course you're not going to feel 100% confident. Confidence only comes on the back end of the success that you have, right? So one, the success is getting to the exam. Number one, the success is getting to the exam, right? Preparing in a way that got you to feel good about applying for that exam, paying your money to pick the date and go, right? That's one level of confidence. Your second level of confidence is being in that exam and feeling like you can finish those questions, feeling like I got some of them you can answer. But the confidence truly comes from afterwards when you have success of passing. Now, I don't want to, even the people who fail, if they study in a certain way and their score is high enough, they'll still have confidence. But if there's an expectation of a particular type of score and they don't get it, then they're going to have less confidence, right? But confidence always comes on the back end of success. So what you have to do in order to, to be able to pass is, connect the dots of what you've understand. Like, let's say it's applied anatomy. It's applied things, problem solving, right? So I know flexor tendon. I know that the superficialis connects to the base of P2 and it flexes PIP and it secondarily flexes MP, and thirdly it affects wrist flexion, right? Profundus inserts into distal end, to the proximal end of P3, and it helps to flex the DIP, secondarily the PIP, the MP, and also affects the. So then if you understand that about the profundus, then how do you connect the dots in terms of laceration, where, what's the protocol? And it's not about memorizing the protocol, but really understanding, because if there's anything that has really changed between the 6 to 10 years ago to now, is that there's a reliance on how therapists should be thinking through a protocol to know how to advance someone and how to slow someone down, right? What kind of splints to put them in and how to progress them out of it. So that is the connecting of the dots part, where you can do that pretty well, is applying what you know and then making firm decisions in lieu of self-doubt. Because what you do and what you see in the clinic is technically how you make decisions, and is how they want you to be making decisions on the exam. But in person, you've got a 3D person. You can touch, you can feel, you've got more than one chance. On the exam, you've got one chance. Pick the right answer or bust, right? Pick the right answer or bust. And people who study in a way where they're able to connect the dots and apply their knowledge and make those firm decisions do much better than people who don't. And that's how they pass the first time, right? The last thing I want to talk about that help people to pass the first time is actually to release the pressure valve. Does anyone know what I'm talking about when I say release the pressure valve? So there's a lot of pressure. You have a lot of pressure on yourself. If you're working somewhere, you might feel the pressure of everyone on top of you with that pressure, right? So when I was studying for the exam, I did the whole, I can do this. I can pass. Hire me. I'm gonna be your new CHT, right? So when I came in, I had a ton of pressure. One that I placed on myself, and two that my company placed on me, and they meant well. They're all rooting for me, but their rooting for me applied more pressure, right? And some people do really well with pressure, and some people don't. You have to decide for yourself, who are you? Who are you? Do you do well with pressure, or is it too much to bear? And we do well when there's a certain amount of pressure. You know how you cook something, right? You know those pressure cookers nowadays? What is it? The Instapot and whatever else. I'm talking about old school pressure cooker, and you put that lid on there. Those have always scared me, but put that pressure on there, and you have to release a certain amount of steam, right? Put it too much pressure, and it breaks down. Like everything in there is mush. Not enough pressure, and everything is hard as a rock, super chewy, can't eat it, right? Put enough pressure with enough in that certain time period, put enough pressure, and whatever you're cooking is going to come out perfect, right? Whatever you're cooking is going to come out just right, just as you need it. And so I think the people who pass the first time have the ability to grade the amount of pressure that they put on themselves. I want to apply it just like as if you're putting pressure on your patients, right? If you are stretching somebody that has a lot of stiffness, and you put too much pressure too fast, too hard, and they have a lot of pain, and you can't really progress them. They're pulling away from you. They don't want to do the thing that you want them to do. They're not getting the results that you hope that they would get. And it's because there was too much pressure. And then, of course, the people who you work with that you don't put enough pressure, you're too soft, you're not, you're not really doing that much. Like they don't feel anything because you're unsure, you're not putting enough pressure, so they also don't get the results that you're hoping for and that they were hoping for. So when I say release the pressure, the people who do well and pass the first time have the ability to grade the pressure that they provide to themselves. Nobody can do this for you. Nobody can do this for you. It is solely your own thing. It is solely your own thing. So I think that takes a certain amount of awareness of of what you're doing, how you're doing, and in your particular scenario. And one of the things that I do in the program side, like inside a hand exam prep program, is we have a set curriculum that we follow, right? That helps you with the study, which if you study in that particular way, it's going to help release the pressure valve, right? The other way we like to release the pressure valve is by paying attention to certain things, like how you get started. So everyone has to send me their plan and their curriculum and stuff like that. And then they get in touch with me at a certain time in the program. And anytime that they get stuck, I am the person that helps to release the pressure valve, myself and my team, right? To release that pressure valve. And here's one thing that I want to remind you if you're studying for the exam and you feel a lot of pressure, right? This is one way to release a pressure valve. And it's to say that you're a great therapist. You're already a great therapist. And you're already an OT, you're already a PT, and this is a specialty certification. Yes, do you want it? Yes, hello. Is it going to improve your career? Absolutely. I'll talk about that another time. Return of investment, there's a pressure of like, I'm spending this much time, I'm spending this much money, I'm sacrificing certain things, but to get great results or to, make changes and improvements in our lives and our career, there has to be a certain amount of pressure applied, but not too much, because too much will break you. It will break your spirit. And the people who put way too much pressure on themselves, I have to get this. I have to get this so I can get another job. There are other ways to get another job that will support what you're currently doing. The pressure of judgment of others. What would they think of me if I failed? What if I ruined this and that and the other, and nobody now, everyone will know. Yes, they'll know. You got to release a lot of that. But the greatest release, I hope, to remind you today is that you're already a therapist. So regardless if you pass or fail, you're still going to be a great therapist. You still have the potential to be a great therapist. How great is great? It's as much work and effort as you're willing to put into it. And you'll be able to work. It's just, this is a specialty that will transform your career, right? You just need that one time. You just pass that one time and you're set for the rest of your career, right? So in a way, you got to release that pressure of like, it's not that you're not going to work. Of course you're going to continue working. You're going to continue helping patients. Of course you're going to continue helping patients. And how we become great and how we continue to improve with the patients that we work with is like every once in a while there's going to be that someone that you're not getting good enough results, and so that will drive you hopefully to want to improve on a technique, on the way you're communicating, on your hands-on skills, on your exercise prescription to get them better results. But that's because that pressure, that's you wanting to help not just that person that's there, but the next person that comes in after them that's just like them, but you've got to release that pressure valve. So you have to understand that there's a certain amount of pressure you apply that will help you become successful. Too much will break you, right? Too much will break you. Not enough pressure, and you're not doing shit. You're not studying for the exam. You're like, whatever, right? There's people who have great positions and they never feel the need to study and become CHTs, right? And it's because they're like, whatever, because they have no pressure. They're not putting any kind of like pressure on, like, they're like, oh, I'm okay being average. I'm okay, like, whatever, seeing the patients I have. I'm never going to lose my job. I mean, listen, the way things are, you never know. You never know who's coming and going. And the way I see it is that when you develop yourself, you take those skills with you no matter what happens. No matter what happens. So you have to have enough pressure to want to be better, to want to elevate in terms of your career and your status and getting the credentialing that you want that will set you apart from every other therapist out there, right? So you have to have a certain amount of that pressure, but too much pressure, and it's going to break you. It's going to squish you. It's going to break your spirit. And it's the one thing I find that allows a lot of self-doubt to come in. It is a thing that heightens self-doubt, anxiety, and put too much pressure on, and you're not studying effectively. So you're putting in the hours, but it's like ineffective hours. So you're just there and you're like chugging along, but you're not really doing it. It's kind of like when you work out, but you eat a cheeseburger later, double quarter pounder with cheese. I'm just saying, right? And then you're like, why can't I lose weight? I'm not talking about myself, but maybe I am. Maybe I am. So yeah, those essentially are the three things I've noticed in terms of looking at, how the current, like the last 3 years, how the students, but this last time, been able to curate like a really, great group where, we have really high results of people who are taking it for the first time. I had somebody actually he didn't take it for the first time, but he took it years ago and he failed, and it's haunted him for a little while, and he came back. And so I'm like, you got to put those out of your mind because it's been too long, right? So it's been too long. It's been like, it was like 5 years or something. Maybe I'm talking the wrong story, but he, he's able to study, and I was just like, you got to release that pressure. You got to release that pressure. And one of it's like, I said, well, are you afraid to take it because you don't want to fail again? Who fucking cares? If you fail, so what? So what? Like, that's the kind of, like, you have to, like, who's going to judge you? Who cares? And because we're able to create a plan and work on releasing that vow, he actually passed. Didn't even want to tell me. I'm like, come on, people, tell me the results, right? But we had Rebecca. She came on. She was studying for a little bit, and we created a plan. And she wanted to do it sooner than later. I said, okay, we can do a 6-month plan. This is her first time taking it. Nothing in her way. She's got a job that supports. She's got, and not the support, not like, oh yeah, you can study at work, but more like she had cases that supported her study to make it easier, right? And it really helped her to get the structure to ensure that 6-month plan. And she was studying like a month before, and I said, if you want to do it in 6 months, I was like, it's gonna be hard and heavy, right? You got to do X, Y, and Z, and I need to know at this time whether you're actually going to take it or not, or else we will put it off, for the November exam. And I'm a big fan of creating realistic plans, realistic timelines, and that way you can feel successful. If you create a shitty plan, you're not going to feel successful because you haven't been able to study in the way that you need to. So we got Rebecca on this plan, a 6-month plan. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to study. You need to be able to connect the dots. These are how you're going to, the strategy of the questions, how you're going to break that down, how are you going to think through and make sure that your focus is where it needs to be, because not all questions are the same. They don't all weigh the same. So we were able to connect the dots, and we were able to release the pressure valve. And that was like, hey, listen, we're going to study like we passed in the first time, but where's your out? Your out is you're still going to have a great job. You're still going to have a great life. Things are still looking good for you, right? Still got a great attitude, positive outlook on life, and you're still going to be able to practice. Nothing is going to stop you from not practicing. You're still going to practice. And if you are not successful, then what we can do is we can do a score audit. We do a score audit. We break it down. We break down what you've done before to say, hey, what's helped you to be successful? What's the thing that's not helping you to be successful? You can break that down. Sometimes it's not about making complete changes. Sometimes it's about making fine-tuned tweaks to your plan and your program so that you can dive into the next time and pass, right? But since we were able to stay on track and we were able to do the thing that we need to do, which is really release the pressure valve, she took the exam and was able to make firm decisions in lieu of some of the self-doubt of some of the questions, because they're freaking hard. They're freaking hard. And she passed the first time, right? I'm happy that you are helping people pass the test. Fortunately, I passed on your first time. Good for you. Congratulations for passing the first time. It's possible. 60% possible, right? But there's another 40% that's not possible, where they're missing by like 5-10 points. Sometimes they're missing by more. But then it really comes down to like, what are the changes that need to happen to help you be successful? But being able to compare, because yeah, we can all say that we passed the first time, but what was it that worked? And it's not by looking at people who pass the first time all the time. And it really isn't. It's by looking at like what's stopping people from passing. First time, second time, 10th time, it doesn't really matter, right? But what's keeping you from passing? Sometimes it's that pressure valve you got to release. All right, someone's coming in hot from YouTube, I think. Oh. Hey, I'm currently in OT. Spoke with you briefly about your mentorship program. Just wondering if you have an option for paying per month to gain access to your videos just to start somewhere. Well, in the hand therapy mentorship program, you have access to one particular library that's very focused on treatment. And the way I teach is essentially the same. I'm a big believer in critically thinking through, problem solving, and making decisions, regardless of where you are, whether you're studying, you're treating. So that part is very much the same. And that is our month-to-month access to get access to our coaching, like our mentorship program, coming in and getting started somewhere. Like this month, we're on wrists, right? So we're going through wrist fractures, and we're talking about different types of wrist fractures, what you would do for it, how you would think through it, what are some of the treatment strategies that you could be applying for your patients. And listen, you need to know that for the exam. However, if you're getting ready to sit for the exam, we're going to go into a lot more detail. So then it becomes like a lot more about the types of fractures, the fragments of fractures, the names of those fractures, and a little bit more about different types of testing. And then it's so much more detailed. But if you just want to get started, there's a lot of people who come into the hand therapy mentorship program and they get started that way to get going, right? Our fast track framework is one of the tools that I've implemented in both programs to help you think through a lot of the different problems. So if you're just wanting to get started, but you're not yet ready to like go like ham on the exam, or you just want to try me out and be like, I just want to see what it's like inside the program, then you can go into the hand therapy mentorship program. That is our $99 a month program. You get started in that. You get started at any time. You can cancel at any time. I don't ask any questions if you cancel. Don't feel bad. I just want to be as useful and as helpful as I can during that time. People send in questions of anything they want to discuss and want to talk about, and we'll do case analysis, right? So one of the things that I actually did in the workshop that we had was we took certain cases that people had and we applied this thinking method of saying, okay, well, what is this problem? What is this problem? What are you thinking? What have you done before? What's getting you results? What's not getting you results? What's the next step? How do you progress somebody? Right? So we're starting from like that treatment approach and then working backwards to like knowing a lot of the details, right? In the exam prep program, it's a lot more detailed. So we're almost going from the book knowledge and having to know all those things to then know, okay, how would you evaluate that? What's a prognosis? What is the protocols? Or really, how do you think through what the protocol would be, even if you didn't have the protocol? And then how do you anticipate problems? And then what are the different things that you would do to treat it? What's allowed, and what would you pick to do? And then on the exam, so much about the exam is that they're going to give you the right answers. You have to pick the best answer, right? So the hand exam prep program is very, very geared toward, like, I want to help you study in a way that's going to help you pass the first time. So the people who do, really great the first time around, really, they're dedicated to studying. They're making the time, they're putting the time in, they're able to apply, they're able to connect the dots. And even if they're doubtful, they're making those decisions that they need to be making. And then they're able to release the pressure valve, right? And I think that that's really possible, even for people who've failed in the past. People who failed in the past have a lot more of that pressure, and that kind of holds them back. And one of the things I would say is, I try to share. Not everyone's willing to share, their successes and their failures, right? But Nicole, she was in one of the other years, and it's on my YouTube channel. Her story about her success, and she took it several times. And when she studied the time that she passed, she really had to make tweaks. And one of the tweaks I would say was she had to declutter. She had to declutter some of the way she thought, and she had to get a lot more specific, right? And then she had to apply the specifics that she learned to connecting the dots for treatment. And she had tried before and had released the pressure valve, but we were able to work really specifically with her to help her really think through the way that the test wants you to think through cases, because you're doing a lot of right things. It's just there's one best way, and that's the way that you need to pick on the exam. So if you are not sure about which program to get started with, send me a message. But the hand exam prep program is really specific. It is a commitment. Sorry, I'm an all-in girl, right? If you want to sit for the exam, there's a commitment. It's a minimum of 6. It's a 6-month program. It is a 6-month program. And one of the things that I do is when you apply to be in the program, then we'll sit and we'll talk and we'll say, okay, what's possible? Where are you thinking? What does your schedule look like? What's the kind of plan that we need to create that's going to help you be successful? Let's be realistic. So when it's not realistic, it really doesn't help. It actually applies more pressure. So if you're interested in taking the exam November 2022 to become a certified hand therapist, apply for the hand exam prep program today, so we can get you in and we can onboard you and we can make sure that you're set and you're ready to sit for the boards in November. Now we've got people who are in the program, know that they need more time, and they're in that program essentially for the year. So they get started, and then we set a cadence of a plan, so that there's times where we're hard and heavy, it's very specific, it's a lot more, and then we are in a process where we're a little bit slower. So right now we're in the slower process, so we're like taking it a little easy, still on track with stuff. But then come August, we're going to go 3 months before the exam. We got to really prepare, right? We got to really prepare. So things need to change and be according to plan so that you can hit that target of that November exam. If you're for May of 2023, then you have a similar plan, only it's going to be like a cadence, like up and down, right? So if you have any questions about that, please, if you're on Instagram, you can DM me. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can send me a message as well. I'll be leaving the link in the comments section so that you can pull it up and say, oh, I want to apply to this program. And once you apply, then you can come in there and you can ask me whatever questions you need to. Let me see, copy. And I'm going to just type that into the chat here so you can apply for the program. Oh, you can apply for the program. So I just left a chat there in the chat. So you can apply for the program there. And if you're on Instagram, then the link is in the bio. Link is in the bio. So just keep that in mind. I just want to share some of the experience that I've seen, some of the data that I'm comparing against. But these essentially are the three things that I've really noticed in terms of helping you pass for the first time. Didn't pass for the first time, it's still possible for you. Don't give up. You'll never become a certified hand therapist if you give up, right? If you failed it just recently, apply for the program. I'll talk you through the program. One of the biggest things that I do for people in the program is I do a score audit. If you think of a coach, if you think of basketball coaches or any kind of sport coaches, right? So my friend's daughter is she's in gymnastics, right? You get your coaches, and all coaches do is they look and they watch you and they say, where can I tweak some of these movements or so that they can perform better, right? So one of my friends, she had her daughter is in gymnastics, and just her coach saying, oh, if you put this amount of power here and you flip this way, you're gonna land better. I'm just making shit up right now, but that's what they did, and they're like, oh wow, like the next time she tried, she was able to make those key corrections and was able to actually hit the mark that she was looking for. If you look at golfers, you look at any kind of athlete, they have coaches there that are standing outside looking and saying, okay, what can you do to tweak to make small improvements? And I think that when we do that score audit, that's essentially one of the things that we do to identify and say, where should you focus? Because it's not that you've done it wrong. It's just that you need to make small improvements, right? How do I make it really, what's an example I can make that's really relevant to hand therapy? Making a custom fitted splint, making a custom fitted orthosis. You make your orthosis, and then what do? You have to audit it. This is what we do. You have to audit your splint. You have to say, okay, are my edges rounded? Is it smooth and not jagged and scratching or pinching someone? Do I ask the questions to say, is there any spots on there that's causing you pain? Is the plastic rubbing on a bony process that might be causing some irritation? Is it fitting you the way it's supposed to fit you? Right? These are all little things that you stand outside as the expert, because the patient doesn't know what to look for. They rely on you to look for it, right? So that's just like getting like a mentor or coach who's standing on the outside, who can look on the inside and say, okay, well, let me see what you're doing here, here, and here. And it's not to criticize, but it's to make improvements. It's to make improvements. You want to pass. Sometimes you got to look at what you're doing, be honest, and say, oh, what am I doing that I could do to improve upon so I could pass? right? So anyway, I hope this helped you. How our students were able to study and pass the first time around, right? So if you're, I think earlier someone was on here and they're like, I passed for the first time, I'm a CHT now. Perfect, awesome. If you know anyone else who needs help to prepare to sit for the CHT exam, please feel free to share this live with them and let them discover what it takes and what they need to focus on in order to pass for the first time. All right. So I really appreciate you guys watching. Really appreciate the questions. And I would really appreciate a share. If you don't need this information, I hope you share it with someone who would. All right. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye.